Hi, everyone. This is the first episode of Tuned In, and I'm super, super excited because I had a vision of bringing all the mentors, all the experts that truly influenced me, not only as an artist, but for my self growth. And you were one of the most significant mentors that truly transformed my life, not only from my artistic point of view, but also my personal and just how I see the world from now on. And I wanted to share your message to more people. And I'm so excited to have Ronny Hatchwell here.
Yay! Nice to see you all, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure, honestly,
All
my
the way
pleasure.
from Israel.
Yes, yes, it's very interesting times. We're already 2 months in. We are in New York, still in quarantine. Here in Israel, it's a little bit better. So hopefully, we're going to be able to enjoy the sun as well soon. Um, but before we start, I just kind of want to give people a background about you, and maybe you want to introduce yourself and tell us how did you get to the Be and Will Be method? Kind of what is your background?
Well, it started when I was very young. I realized there was something else above me. And the first encounter I had was then I was about 7 and I drowned, literally drowned and lost consciousness in a pool. And I had an out of body experience. I sort of left and I saw everything that was happening from above me, and I could see my father pull me out of the pool and try to get the water out. And then there was a moment where I came back like a sort of earthquake. And I told my parents what had happened, but they just looked on to me and didn't say anything. So I thought everybody experienced that. I ended up experiencing that a lot during my life. And then I would get these messages. But I was very much alone in all of that because at the time you couldn't say anything because people thought you were a bit strange. And then during the years, I mean, I'm jumping now, I found myself in the music industry. I was there for 30 years and I'm still doing that. I represent an organization called Creative Community for Peace. And at some point, I was the CEO of EMI Music Publishing in Israel. And so I was in touch with a lot of artists. So while I was having this, and I'd written a book by then called Be and It Will Be. And it came up in a different version that was released in the States called The Secret of Effortless Doing, Be and It Will Be. So that's the secret, be and it will be. And I found myself instructing artists through a different avenue because you can teach an artist or anyone technicalities, but if they don't believe in themselves and believe that they can, it's not going to work. And I used to come across a lot of artists who used to say, oh, I've got a very bad PR. And I'd say, okay, but you manifested that into your life. So let's find out what it is about you that doesn't want to be a success. And then either the same PR starts changing or you start changing and you encourage somebody else to come along. And then I've also had people who say, for a guitarist would come and say, why should I even bother? There's so many guitarists in the world. And I would say, yeah, but when I put on the radio, I know if it's Al Di Meola, I know if it's Eric Clapton, because there's a special handwriting, and every single person has that speciality. And it's the speciality that comes through. And so since then, I've been giving a lot of workshops to artists because I truly believe that the artist has a privilege. He has a stage, and he can speak to a lot of people at the same time, whereas an individual, so if he has a message that he can convey, if it's through his songs, through his music, even saying something on stage, then he's using that privilege correctly. And I think we're in very interesting times right now where I don't think there's an individual on earth that understands what's happening, but we do get that there's something different happening and that we cannot continue the way we have been. And I think artists in particular are affected right now because it's a whole industry, the promoters, it's a domino effect. It's from the promoters down to the artists. Everybody's affected now. We've got to find a new way. And we also want to get artists to earn a living, not just stream for free, because, that seems to be a given. It's expected of artists. But without art and without music, and I say, that above all else that's happening now, that people are now volunteering to give food and whatever, we should also give music. We should give something that uplifts, because our immune system is based on the way we feel about ourselves. And if I'm not happy, my immune system goes down. I affect the whole of society by just bringing myself down. If I'm uplifted, I uplift my surroundings. So I think that's a very important message. And I think that every single artist must ask himself, what is it that they can do first for themselves so that they can feel happy, and then pass it on. The other thing that I would like to talk about is what we call, and we're doing it now, streaming. It's not about who you are standing on stage. It's about what you're delivering. And if you are too interested in who you are, you won't get the audience you want. And I've seen that with myself. At first, when I used to give lectures, I was occupied, did I wear the right dress? Am I too fat? Whatever. And nobody enjoyed it. But when I was in the delivery, people were high and said, wow, what was that? So it's being in the delivery, and it doesn't matter if it's 5 people that turned up, because those 5 people, if they enjoy themselves, they're going to bring the next 20. So never argue with what's happening.
I really love this. And I remember one of my first I didn't really knew what it is, but when I was 21 years old, I got my first break. I got my first opera role, Tatiana from Eugene Onegin, which, if you're a soprano, it's one of the hardest roles on the repertoire of the soprano, because it's 3 hours, Tchaikovsky, it's a full orchestra. And my voice at the time wasn't technically developed, but I just jumped into water and I just trusted and I just let it go. And it was one of my best performances so far. And I always, since that day, I tried to recreate that. And that's where I got myself in a little trap. And it's very important to step away from yourself, step away from the technique, step away from the what do you think it should be, and kind of deliver what it's in that specific moment.
I agree totally. Because at the end of the day, it is what it is. It is a delivery. Nothing belongs to us. Things come through us. Even now that I'm talking to you, it's not me. There's something coming through me. If I think it's me, I'm going to start stuttering.
I think
control.
Okay. Yes, and I remember when I was studying in a conservatory, and we learned about history, music history in particular, obviously. And I remember one of the story, the Mozart and his biography, talking about how he would write all those symphonies, all this complex music within seconds, within minutes, a night before the performance, because he was hired by the king. And he always talked about something through him. And that stuck in me, this sentence. And I always thought, what is this through me? That kind of invoked something from me from inside. And when I heard your message, it just clicked for me.
So that's alignment. That's actually understanding. I think the premise has to be first that we all agree that there is a source before us, that something created me. I don't care what you call it. You can call it God, you can call it source, you can call it energy, a universe, doesn't matter. But once we agree to that, life becomes easier, because there's certain things. I always say, if there's a problem, move away from it and it solves itself. But if you're trying to solve the problem, you're in a very, very condensed space. And then you've got the mind that is telling you a story about what it thinks it knows, but the mind only knows what it knows. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. Okay? So it cannot discover something new if it thinks it knows. And now, who's the thinker of what it thinks it knows? That's the ego. And the ego wants to prove, and the ego wants to show, and it wants to be the performer. But if you let go of that, you become, this is the biggest paradox, you become the bigger performer, because you are now enjoying yourself in alignment, doing it, rather than thinking about doing it or how you're doing it.
It's so interesting. So when we speak about, especially for artists, when you talk about this method, how is it different from working for people that are not artists, when you had the chance to work with artists, as myself included?
Well, first of all, I think everybody's an artist. I don't think there's anybody on earth that does not have a talent. And I think that, and that's a given. Everybody has something. It's a handwriting. It's the way they do it. Even a clerk in the bank has a way of doing things and expressing himself. But with artists, and I have to apologize ahead for saying this, they seem to have a bigger ego, because They are always occupied with themselves. Even when they're going to buy clothes, they don't differentiate between the persona of the artist and choosing the clothes for how they feel about themselves. There's always something going on that keeps bringing them back to, I have to impress. And I have a sentence that says, don't impress, express. You've come here to express. When you express, you fall on somebody else's wavelength that is listening to that expression. But if you're impressing, you're falling on an ego, and there's going to be a judgment there. Okay, so I find I've come across a lot of artists who are amazing artists, but the father might have said, you're not going to make any money from that, don't even bother, or you don't even have that good a voice, so why bother? And they were waiting for that father's compliment to get on with it. And I've had people even, the parents have gone by now, but they still have that space in them. They said, but my father didn't believe in me. I remember having an artist who really sang amazingly, but when she was 9 and her mother came back from shopping, and her mother was very irate at the moment, and she just spurted out the first thing that came along, and she was singing and dancing and having fun, and her mother said, oh, shut up, you don't even have a good voice. So that stuck with her, and she was struggling rather than flowing, because she kept going against that thing. If her own mother, who's supposed to love her, said that, and her mother didn't remember, it was a sentence that she said out in rage or whatever, but she kept that in her. And we say that about 3 times in our lives where something happens and the second later we're not the person we were before. So while she was dancing and having fun, the second after, when her mother said that, she wasn't the person she was before. She changed. Now that becomes a pattern. So now she becomes a struggle. And everything she wants to do in life, she has to ask them, do I believe it? Is it true? Okay. And it's based on somebody who said something. It happened once, but the repeat of the belief happens every single day. That's what we want to get rid of. We want us to become our own masters of our own domain, to understand that we choose how to feel about us, and we have to forgive everybody else for being who they were not being that we expected them to be.
And they play such an important role for us to go deeper within ourselves, and we need to be thankful for their presence in our life. And I think I always say that also, our closest people are the greatest mirror of all, because they show us our greatest insecurities, our greatest things we want to work in a deeper level and love ourselves in a deeper way.
Yeah. They are our mirrors. Without them, we would not know who we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So contrast is great. Embrace it. Love the fact. And I think for artists, as you said, it's not only their inner circle. They're always looking. I remember, and it's not just me. It's especially in the classical realm, it's all about perfection. It's all about hitting the right note, the right tune, and the right correct placement, singing the right style, language. There's so many factors, and you learn to be in a certain way and to sing in a certain way.
Who decides what perfection is? Who decides that?
And you take those coaches, those vocal coaches or voice teachers, as God, because they are where they are and they have all this experience, and you try to break into this industry and you try to act a certain way or sing in a certain way. Will you be accepted? And you kind of lose yourself expression and your uniqueness, and it's almost sound like everybody sound the same these days, because everybody's copying what they're hearing in the CDs and what the greatest artists did. They go to the same teachers and they all sound the same. And this is why for me it was so important to be and my passion to be a vocal teacher is to really bring that uniqueness that we're losing, and that, as you promote so greatly, about really trust that if you have a passion, this is not something that just happens. You have to trust it and go with that, and
make up your own rules.
And make up.
Who's your boss? Who's living your life?
Exactly.
The thing is, it doesn't even matter. I've met a lot of artists who, they're not always on track, but they know how to sing their own music. And the audience, as long as they're kicking ass, sorry, want a better word, on stage and enjoying themselves, everybody's enjoying it. They don't even hear if it's the right decibel or not. Nobody cares. People want to enjoy themselves. And I think that is the most important thing here. So I even say that if somebody thinks that he's not as perfect as somebody else, the minute you start comparing yourself to somebody else, you're not you. And there's only one of you doing you. There's nobody else in this whole wide world doing the part of you. So if you're not faithful to your own self, then you're going to expect criticism, because people can see through. They can say, oh, she's not authentic. Something there is not working. So to get authenticity means that you first have to accept you and not care. You have to stop caring what other people think about you, because otherwise you're in two worlds. If you've come here to deliver something that you have, and you should be enjoying it yourself first, that's what you're delivering. And we're always talking about vibrations. We're talking about states of being. My state of being is the only thing that radiates. So if I'm talking to a dog and I say to a dog, I hate you, the dog isn't going to hear hate. It's going to hear the vibration of love. But if I shout at him, I love you, in a way that I would have said, I hate you, he's going to understand hate. It's not about the words. It's about the tone. It's about the expression. It's about the state of being that you are in. If you're loving you, you can expect love in return. If you're not loving you, you can't expect it in return. It's as simple as that. And it's science today. Science will tell us about, there's a vibration, you're the vibration, you enter a wavelength, and there has to be a receptor at the end of that wavelength. It's just a given. So anything that you're doing now and being can actually affect somebody now in Hawaii, and you don't even have to know that.
And that's the power of music. That's the kind of international emotional language that everybody understands. And I listen to so many artists from different countries. I don't even know what they're singing about, but my soul feels it, and I feel that connection. And I wish everybody would understand that our voice is so powerful, just as a vibration tool, instrument. And it's not about hitting the perfect notes, because nobody cares about it. People want to feel. People want to feel. They want to relate. They want to see themselves within you. They want to see the vulnerability, because not everybody are vulnerable these days. It's tough when you're exposing yourself like that in terms of your voice and your soul. But we need more of that to give some sort of permission to other people to see, okay, I something within me kind of released, and I feel better.
And by the way, once you allow yourself to be really vulnerable and completely open, you've crossed your own bridge. Because once you've done that, there's nowhere else to go. It's done. You're relieved. You've just gone and done something that's relieved you from years and years of holding. Because why do we not do that? Because we always care what other people think about us. Mm-hmm. When you stop caring, that's the biggest paradox. When you stop caring and you're in the flow, you give the perfect performance. And perfection is in the imperfection, because that is the handwriting that we each have. And we can't all be the same, and thank God for that. We want variety. I have an argument with a word. People like to use the word diversity. And I say, why not use the word variety? Why diversity? Mm-hmm. Because if you came down now from another planet and you knew nothing, you knew absolutely nothing, and now you're watching. And you're watching somebody with a hijab, and you're watching somebody with a cross, and somebody with a Magen David, and a yellow person, and a black person, and a beige person, whatever, and you're thinking, wow, this is genius. So many variations. But because there is all this stuff going on judgments, that we know something because somebody told us something, we look at it as diversity. But it isn't. Every single individual is a special person.
So living in a world where, everything is so visual, everybody's showing their best self on Facebook, everybody are so, surrounded, let's say an artist that sees and feels there's something within him that he wants to express. He doesn't really know if he's good enough, but he has the passion, but he doesn't really have the support around him. What would you say to him or her?
So the first thing I would do, as you know, we have a method, and it's called a cleansing method. So the first thing that we do is first to understand, who are you? In order to understand who are you, I've got to use the mirrors around me. So we usually start with our fathers and our mothers and blah, blah, blah. So every single trait that I recognize in somebody else lives in me in a certain way. Okay. Now, if I'm looking at somebody and I'm saying, wow, I wish I was like that, and I take a trait that I really admire, then I know that there's a judgment about me, because why would I admire something if I didn't have a judgment about me? I wouldn't be looking at that trait. And if it's a negative trait, then that trait will live in me for sure, because I wouldn't be watching it otherwise. I can give you an example. If I think of somebody as a miser, somebody who's stingy with money, we're both in prison now, because that means that every time he makes a gesture, maybe he brings me some flowers, I'm going to say, I found it on the floor. I have to justify the fact that I think of him in a certain way. Now, every time I have to meet that person, I become condensed. Oh, God, I got to meet this miser again, right? So we're in prison. I want to relieve that person from the way I feel about him. And this is the important thing to understand. There is no measurement other than me experiencing me in any single given situation. Whatever I'm looking at, I'm experiencing me looking at that. So if there's a cup here, the way I experience this cup is me. I am the cup in that moment. You may see the cup in a different way, and that is you experiencing you. So we really have to get this, because the way we look at the outside world is through our inner experience of ourselves. And that gives us tremendous power, because I don't have to educate anyone. I don't have to go outside and say, no, you've got to fix yourself so I can feel better. Can you just stop being that tall because it doesn't feel right? No, I fix it within me, and then the world suits me. Okay, it works that way. But the first thing I have to learn is forgiveness. I have to release that person. So just to remind us, we're talking a spiritual talk here, which means that and we said the premise was that we believe that there's a higher power, there's God or whatever. So if you came into my life, you and I, because we're in a relationship, we will have had some sort of a contract between us that said, I'm going to play this part in your life, you're going to play this part in my life until we both wake up. So if I've woken up to understand that it's my responsibility the way I see you, and I don't like the way I see you, I'm the one that has to release you. And then when I release you, you don't have to play that part anymore. So if somebody is insisting on knocking on your door and, I don't know, cursing you or whatever, it's because you haven't released them. It's not the other way around. And that person wants to be released. He doesn't like being that person. But we've put him in that position because we're not willing to look inside and do the work. So the first thing is we look at the traits of others, okay? And we have a lot of forgiveness. And then we can now work with the person who's in front of me. And then what I can say to him or her is now he's free to be who he needs to be and to stop judging himself and just be in the flow of the music, of the writing, or whatever it is that he has to be doing in his art, whatever it is. He can now just be expressing because he's disconnected himself from all what we call the rubbish.
So important for artists. I think, I think most of our work was always trying to satisfy people and trying to make them like us. And it's just completely does the opposite. And it's a prison. You're putting yourself and others in that prison and not allowing the magic happen. I think that's the beauty of performing and being an artist. It's you're being some sort of magician. You just create this environment around you. And it's so liberating to just produce and express with no even, and I think the greatest, like the artist that pops in my head, Lady Gaga, like I know when she sings and when she came 15 years ago, I don't even remember, she was just so outrageous, so out of avant-garde. Impressing. And what really impressed me about her, she's not the perfect singer. She's not like the most polished one, but she touches you. She speaks to your heart. And that's why, in my belief, that's why it made her success so huge. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need more of. And stop looking for that reassurance outside and just give yourself the permission to be who you are and just go with that and see what's going to happen. What's the magic that's going to be.
And I think stop trying, because when you're trying, you're trying. We always say a bird doesn't try to fly. You
Yes.
have to be in the moment. You have to learn how to be in the moment and just be in the expression and the flow of it.
So speaking of, this is one of the sentences that in Ronny inspiration cards that I use daily, and I also use it with my students. And it's such a great way to kind of evoke and show you where your focus is, and also what are the inspiration that can inspire you and look in a different way and shift your energy. So it's super cool. And speaking of being an artist, Ronny, you're an artist yourself.
I didn't even know. I started to doodle, and then I thought, you know what? Why not put one of my messages on Facebook with the doodle? And then people started saying, "Are you selling?" I said, "Why not?"
Exactly. Are you buying?
You can see at the back.
Ooh.
Can you see there's the lamb is on the back? I don't know if you can see it from here. But yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous. And just for the sake of fun of it, I'm just going to pull one of the cards and see what Soul has to say for us. Okay. So we have
the Mars.
I love this one. I get this a lot, actually. How many masks do we wear in a day? Who we are being every time we meet someone? Can we not just allow ourselves to be comfortable in our own skin?
And isn't that amazing that you picked that card when we were just discussing that?
There's no coincidence.
No coincidence.
It's just meant to be.
What I do with the cards is that every day when I pull out one, I allow it to be my company all day long.
Yes.
Because I remember what it says, and I'm checking myself, and I'm saying, "Oh, am I being a mask right now?" Yeah.
It's this constant reminder, and I think when you get to that place of feeling that feeling, it's almost addicting. You kind of don't want to go back to feeling bad. You don't want to go to that judgment place. And it's so important to have this daily reminder of working with you, working with people that are like-minded. Surround yourself with people like that to kind of be in that place and not forget that freedom.
It's home. And I just want to make something, what is home? Everybody's got a lack. Everybody's lacking something. In psychology, you go back, you think it's because of a parent or something. It's not. Again, we're talking a spiritual talk. The lack is because we are all connected, but when we don't feel the connection, we're going to feel the void. And in order to feel the connection, I have to see the other person. I have to be, and the only way I can see another person is I'm not occupied with my own misery. So if I'm home and I'm serene, I'm now open to see the other person. That's where the connection is. There's no void in that moment.
And also kind of like a question that just popped in my head.
Yeah.
Sometimes one of the greatest songs or albums were created from a very deep place of pain and expressing that pain. And if an artist, let's say a singer, doesn't feel good that day, and he just can bring himself up to that place of just high frequency, is that something you think, though, it's just allowing yourself to be where you are and meet where you are and allow yourself
to never deny where you are. On the contrary, if you're feeling down, but this is the thing, you want to be watching yourself feeling down. There's a duality living in us. There is the ego, and then there's the God, me. There's the I and there's the me. If it's me, I'm condensed. But I want to be watching that. And if there's pain, and this is the thing to understand, pain is in the body. It's an energy field. The pain is the conscious, the body is the conscious mind. It's the only thing that feels. Nothing experiences anything except the body. Okay? Now, if I'm listening to a story about yesterday, my body's going to feel it in the now because my existence is in the now. If I'm going to tell it a future story, it's going to feel it in the now as well because that's where my body is. Okay? So I have to get that, because if I get that, then I can stop being reactive and I can be proactive. But the first thing I need to do, I don't want to discard where I am. So if I'm feeling pain, I want to go through the pain. But I want to go through it without the story. I want to find out where it is in my body, and it's always in the body. It could be in my chest. So be with that for the moment. Breathe into it. Breathe it out. You've taken notice of it. Now you can go. You don't have to deal with it anymore. Okay? The story and the situation is only a trigger to cleanse the energy fields in our body. The body is a memory field of everything we've ever been through. So if there's a trigger, the trigger is not about something new. It brings up something old, because nobody could put a feeling in you. You can only get a feeling out of you. Okay? So you're a reactive. Yes, definitely. Hug yourself in that moment until it dissipates, and then you can now proactively choose, just because you can,
Yes, if you
how
can.
to feel. How to feel, just because.
That's beautiful. So, question. So, in our world of singers, especially, when you go through this whole series of training, going to vocal coaches, studying maybe in schools, going for auditions, right, for many, many, many years, and nothing really clicks. There's no this breakthrough. Nobody discovered me. There's no break,
Mm.
and they feel stuck. What would you say to them?
Twofold. First of all, I have a friend who called me up one day and said, "I'm so jealous you had your book published." And she's a writer. And I said, "Well, then publish your book." And she's got a lot of money, this friend. And I
By the
said,
way, this is the book.
"That's the Hebrew one. There's the English
One. And the beautiful thing about this book, and before I had the cards, I would obviously I read it frequently and I highlight the places where I feel really where it's truly resonate, and I just kind of flip it and stop and start reading, and it's just so incredible how everything is exactly what I needed to hear every single time.
I always say, first open the book randomly. It's going to fall on something that you need to know, and then read it. But it's a book that just goes on forever. It doesn't matter which stage of your life you're reading it. You're going to read it from the stage you're in. It's going to make different sense than it did, say, a month or a year ago. Okay, because you're changing all the time, So now you're reading it in a different. It makes a different type of sense.
Yes.
When you're now. But that's the Hebrew version. There's one in English. People can get it on Amazon. It's called The Secret of Effortless Doing. Be and it will be. That's the secret of it. So what I would say to somebody, that it's twofold. So my friend calls me up and says, "I'm so jealous." I said, "So publish your book. You've got money. Go and publish your book." She says, "No, I want to be discovered." So I said, "But you see, there's somebody in Timbuktu who can't read your book because you're waiting to be discovered. If I was able to, I'd buy my own publishing house and I would just do it because you want to get the book out." So I would say sometimes first of all, I think that in order to get to that space of getting the part that you want, you have to really understand alignment. If you don't get that and you're still in judgment, and every time you go for the audition, you've already got a story working there. Because remember, we live in a matrix. 90% of our lives is matrix. That means that we are reactive all the time. We've got 5 senses and we are reactive all the time. If you're going to eat chocolate, you're going to remember that you already had chocolate once. Okay? We want to get to what the 6th senses. That is the third eye, as we call, which is the pineal gland. And what does that mean? It means I have to zoom out. If I'm reactive, I have to zoom out for a minute and allow, and this is the biggest paradox, I have to let go of what I think I know in order to discover what I don't know. So if you're going to an audition, you have to let go of everything you think you know. This is a brand new audition. And what I say is, it's not even an audition. Because when you get there, you're acting a part. You're not auditioning. If you're auditioning, you're away from the part. You're acting a part in that moment. Be the part that you're acting, whether you get the part or not. The fact is, you are the actor in that moment, in the being, in the right, in that sense. A lot of people I have sent to do their own one-man show because I found that when they're being judged in auditions, they're so worried about the judges, because the judges are looking at thousands of people all along, they know what they're looking for. And they're looking for something that sticks out. And I found this also in the record business, that the record companies got so used to looking for the next song that they didn't look to see what people were enjoying because they wanted the next, the thing that stuck out. What I'm saying is that when you go and do a one-man show, you're already with the audience. This is your audience. And we're talking about letting go, we're talking about expressing, we're talking about letting go of the judgment, but it's a process. I don't think that somebody can just do it overnight without understanding that they have to peel off a whole load of life that happened to them before, okay? So my first thing would say is don't go to an audition, go and act the part. Be the part that you're acting don't think of it as an audition, and you've already got the part by just acting it. You're in that.
Exactly. And it's very interesting because you said also doesn't matter if it's one person, if that's 500 people, it's the same exact work that you need to do with yourself. And forget that there's audition. This is a place where you can experience that role, that song, because song is also some sort of acting. It's some sort of aligning with a certain emotion and conveying it. And it's just another opportunity to share this. And I think it's when you change the story and you change the way how you look at it, it's just completely shifting the entire energy. And you can see and you can feel somebody's aura, somebody's energy. You can pinpoint what it is, but something about them. It's so, and I see it all the time.
But this is the trick. You have to let go of what you think the outcome will be. Because otherwise, while you're doing it, you're thinking of the outcome. Your state of being has just moved. This is the biggest paradox. It's like, I don't know if you heard of the Tao. The Tao means the way. Nature's going to happen anyway. And the only thing I'm in charge of is my state of being in relation to what's happening. Okay? But if I want to invite a better happening, I have to be in the state of being of acceptance right now, because that is the wavelength that opens everything up. And it's a paradox. So we're saying, people were brought up thinking you've got to try hard, you've got to do this, you've got to work hard. And we're saying, no, you have to be more, work less. It's the other way around. The more you are being, the more you are allowing, because the universe knows what you want. It doesn't have to, oh, I'm sorry, I ordered this a few years ago and it hasn't happened yet. No, It doesn't need that from you. It knows what you want. Okay. Now you just have to be in the flowing of it.
And the beauty of it that I think that's kind of like the whole law of attraction, people that are into the whole self-development, the number thing they say to you, and that's why I love your method so much, that they're so specific of what they want the outcome to be. They visualize, they're so into it, they're clinging to the outcome, that they're losing the magic and the spark of God giving you something even better. And this is where I think that suffering happens, where you expect something, you don't get the result, and you think, oh, the world is against me, and you hate the world, you hate God, you hate yourself.
And that whole conversation is existing in you. That's nowhere else.
Exactly.
You're your own worst enemy.
Exactly.
But we didn't come here to achieve. We came here to express. And when you're expressing, that's a paradox. That's when you achieve. And that's how it works. You've got to let go of the consequences. You have to be so vulnerable that you don't care. Because the second you've crossed that bridge, which we said at the beginning, the second you've crossed that bridge, you're done. You're free. And if you don't know how to give yourself your own freedom, how can you express that? So it's not about achieving. I mean, if you look at everybody that's at home now, and it doesn't matter if you're the biggest artist, you mentioned Lady Gaga, whoever it is, everybody is going through that space inside. Jim Carrey said, I wish everybody could be as rich and famous as me to understand that that wasn't the goal in the first place. Okay? So there's nobody in this world now, rich, poor, whatever, who's not doing this inventory and looking inside and saying, what was that all about? Why was I struggling so much? Because it was here all the time. And if we understand, like a see-through world, God, universe, whatever, is the see-through world. So this cup is manifested from an idea that already was. Okay? Otherwise, where would that idea come from? So I just have to tap into it, but I have to know how. I don't have to work hard. I have to know how to tap into it. The way to tap in is to first understand that I'm not in control of everything. But what I am in control of is how I want to feel. Now, everything that's meant for you already exists in that idea form. The only wavelength that will release that to you is if you allow yourself to be happy and serene. The way to get there is to accept the now, because the now is happening anyway. But the now is a pre-sent moment. The present moment is a pre-sent moment based on your vibration. So if you want to invite a new one, you don't have to do anything. You only have to change your vibration, and then whatever's meant to come to you on that vibration appears. We've seen this with loved ones. We've seen it with whatever the talent is. We've seen it with trying to buy a car, a house, whatever it is. You let go, it comes. So this is the language that people have to really understand and learn. It's a brand new language, and it's totally different to anything we've been taught.
Scary for many people that want that guarantee, those numbers, those reassurance, and they don't understand that the only guarantee we have is this moment right now, and just trusting, and that everything happens for your own good. And
in the now, you will always have what you need. In the now, there is never, we needed a laptop, now we've got the laptop. You don't need anything else other than what you have right now, always. And that is abundance. And this is the other thing about abundance. And people are getting a little bit confused now because they're thinking, oh, maybe it shouldn't be about earning more money. And maybe, no. The universe wants us to have abundance. What it doesn't want us to do is to bow down to it. So if I'm sitting on a chair, I have to enjoy the chair. Isn't this lovely? I've got an amazing chair. But when I go to the beach, I don't want to drag the chair with me. Okay. And when I go to the hotel, I don't want to drag the beach with me, but the hotel is mine and my experience in that moment. So we don't want to be attached. We want to enjoy. We want to be constantly flowing in the amazing, abundant experiences that we have. And then everything comes to us. But we don't want to be attached to it. If we're attached to it, it becomes another God. We've been condensed again. We start having that inner conversation. We become our own worst enemy. And we've just lost the very thing that we wanted in the first place.
It's so true. And as you said, also, now waiting for that opportunity, that audition, that somebody to discover you and create your own show. You have this amazing tool we didn't have back in those days, where we can just broadcast this interview. We can just tap into people's homes and their phones every single moment. This is so powerful. And I think people underestimate it. They think there's a certain way to make it versus just to express and let the journey discover you what you meant to happen. This is what
and it was available. It was available all the time, but now you're forced to see it.
Yes.
It's there all the time.
Speaking of Corona, so the entertainment world is going crazy right now, and a lot of people think that kind of the entertainment is done. It's over. It's definitely not going to be what it used to be. What's the point? What do you think about that?
It's not over until it's over, and that's when life is over. Well, I have a different take. First of all, because my other hat, and I represent this organization, so I'm talking to the promoters all the time and the artists and so on. It's a moment. It's a moment in our life where we have to look back and see where we were before and how things are operating right now. And people come up with these amazing ideas. For instance, this idea of a drive-in right now, so you can come in with your car, out of the car and down. But the thing that we have to understand, Corona means crown. It means that we're reaching a certain point in evolution, and we're in it. We're in the evolution. We're going through it, and the difficult thing is to understand that we have to flow with it rather than struggle against it. Because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, we're going back to normal." No, we're not going back. You can never go back. There isn't a back. It's always new. If you allow yourself to be in the flow, you will get the idea that suits you, to know where to go. But you have to go with what is happening. I think the first thing is the community. What's happening now, which is what I've discovered when I speak to the promoters, that the promoters now are understanding the value of the very small technician who was there, because everybody is in this boat right now. The technician, the person who deals with the lighting, the person that deals with the balance. Everybody is part and parcel of one of the groups of Bon Jovi being on stage. And before that, people just didn't take things. They took things a little bit more for granted. So now, even Bon Jovi or those, they understand that there's this whole industry that without them, they wouldn't exist. So the Red Hot Chili Peppers cannot be who they are without their fans, and the fans can't be who they are without the Red Hot. So there's this thing going on. New relationships are developing, and that's what we've got to understand. We have to find a way where artists can make money at the same time. By the way, there are a lot of links I can send you later, and you can maybe spread them. like Spotify now have opened funds for artists, etc., and so that when you put something on Spotify, your fans can, even if they pay $1, but you're going to get that. Okay, so there are a lot of these links that I can share with you, because people have woken up to the fact that we cannot do without the arts and the music, because we have to uplift. Okay, so it's a very
did during the Corona time, sitting quarantined at home, obviously watching movies, entertaining yourself, using music. It's just, it's not an escapism. It's just a way to connect with everybody.
I can tell you, for instance, Amanda Palmer, I don't know if you know who she is, but she's quite famous. But she started her career by coming to people's couches. Her fans were very small at the time. And she said, you know what? I'm willing to come and sleep on your couch. Bring me your friends. That's how she started. So now she's putting up venues. So it's an idea. Now, how do you get an idea? You get it when you stop brainstorming. In that quiet place that you're accepting what is, you'll get an idea. Now, the trick is that you have to immediately operate on that idea and not go to the mind, because the mind will say, come on, not going to work. Never listen to the mind, because everything can work. Anything, even the most absurd thing can work if you don't believe the mind. And you're in that space. Why? Because we've said everything has already been preordained. Everything was already created. So, if you think of that guy who invented those little cocktail umbrellas, crazy, who needs a cocktail? But you know what? He wasn't listening. He just went out and made them. And there wasn't a pub in the world that wasn't using these cocktail umbrellas. So I would say to everyone, first of all, relax. The panic doesn't bring any solutions. Relax. Allow yourself to be in these times. Allow yourself to get out of the stress. Do the internal work so that you're prepared for the next stage. I do believe that venues are going to come back. They're going to come back first smaller, and then they're going to get bigger. And and this whole thing is a lesson. It's a spiritual lesson. They're already trying to frighten us and saying there's going to be a next wave. Don't listen to the news. Don't listen to the news. Make sure your immune system is high by being happy and serene, doing the internal work, and you'll be fine. And I think that we have to be in the space that we are allowing, rather than thinking and getting into that panic mode that says, oh my God, what's going to happen? It will. Things will happen. It's a new world, and it'll happen for the best. And we'll know what to do, because we'll discover it through relaxing. So people will have ideas, and they're already having it. They're streaming. There are already artists being paid for streaming. So
any person that I speak with says this is the best time that ever happened, including myself. That downtime that forces everybody, no matter where you are in the world, just sit down and be with yourself and just be quiet and still and rethink, and you reconnect to your soul, you connect to your body, you connect to just the people who are around you. You see them finally. We've been in this race. I know in New York, it's always that go, 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 that it's kind of all forced us just be with our own things and cleanse ourselves internally and externally. And
then it comes.
And it comes, and only great things come from it. I honestly, speaking for myself, and it's also, I believe, I don't know, what do you think about that? But social media, in terms of Facebook, all those live experience that, Metropolitan Opera and many different artists like Beyonce, they do the HBO special where they show the behind the scene and also the actual performance and different angles and I enjoy this honestly more than just going to be like a back, somewhere in the back, barely seeing something kind of like vague, and have that experience with other people. I think we probably the next thing, but it doesn't sound, you don't need to think about that. That's the main message.
It's for now. We've got no idea what's going to happen. I don't believe for a minute the universe wants to destroy its own world. I think it wanted us to just sit down for a minute and think about what we've done and how we can improve. But I think that what it has done is brought this togetherness, and you can suddenly feel, without even touching, you can feel through the heart, and you can feel the bonding, and you can feel all these little chat rooms and all these little watch parties are bringing people together. But I do believe that we shouldn't be thinking, we should be allowing. And the more you allow, the more ideas you get, and then you know what to do. There are a lot of people among us who are making a lot of money right now, and and they're getting on with their lives, and it doesn't affect them the way other people. I think the panic is the worst thing, the worst place to be in. And I think as long as, my grandfather used to say, as long as I'm in a body, God wants me to live. So that's a hint. I'm in the body, I'm living. The minute the universe decides to take me, whether it's through Corona or whatever, I will. I've got no control over that.
Exactly.
That's my understanding, we won't go into that now, but there have been a lot of lies around all this, and a lot of fright and people in control and so on. Don't listen to anything that's negative. Be your own boss. Choose your own thoughts because you can. Just because you can. You don't have to have a reason to change your state of being. You can do it because you can, because you have the ability to choose the way you feel about you at any given moment. So it means putting on music and dancing to a song right now because that's going to elevate you. Then do that. You see.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Ronny, so much. It was honestly a privilege. I hope anybody that got the message. I'm sure I feel your energy all the way from New York, and just who you are is just so inspiring. Thank you so much for.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Like meets like,
Yes. We are all lights, little lights. But thank you so much. If you have any questions, guys, I'm sorry, the streaming probably, I'm not sure what happened, but we are live on YouTube. It should be live on Facebook, but I posted on Facebook. And if you have any questions, we'll try to answer it later on. And if you want to contact Ronny, everything in the description bar below, where you can find her email and her website, and so much more. So thank you. Stay safe. And just because you can. I'm still on the line.
Be well.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.